So I'll start this with a plain object. I'll give it 2 by 2 segments, and I'll change the size to 400 by 320, which is the size of our floor tile. And I'm going to make a copy, and I'm going to scale that copy down a little bit to match it up with these edges here. I'm going to make it editable, and I'm going to delete most of it. The first thing we'll do is we're going to add some lines to define the main shapes of the object. And for this I'm going to use the loop cut tool. And let's start with some horizontal cuts. I'm going to make one here, and this will define the area where this detail will be. And you'll notice that I'm not cutting right on the edge, but I'm going to offset my cut a little bit. And I'm doing this so I can use extrude inner later on and create separate islands for each of my details here. So I'm going to keep each of these details separate from the rest of the geometry. So let's continue adding some cuts here. And down here I'm going to cut right on this edge. And we could also add a cut to start defining this detail here. And we're going to need 2 more cuts down here. And I think that's all the horizontal cuts that we need. So now we can continue adding edges to define our details. We're also going to add a cut here, and this will define the edge here. So our first object consists of the frame, and the frame is this top area, and it has this lower area here. And then we're going to create this shape here, and we're going to do this as 2 separate objects. So there will be this outline, and we're going to do this grid of holes separately. So let's continue adding some cuts here. Over here I'm going to offset my cut again a little bit from that corner. Same over here. And we need another cut here. And again I'm going to offset it a little bit from that corner. And I'm going to create 2 more cuts here. And you can see over here we need an additional edge, but in this case I'm not going to cut an entire loop. I'm just going to add the edge that I need. And now we can move this point over a little bit, like so. And let's do the same thing over here. I'm going to select these points here and move them down a little bit, again to create an outline around that detail here. So now we can select these edges and clone them. And over here cloning will be a bit of a problem. So what I'll try and do is select these polygons. I'm going to melt them into a single n-gon, and then I'm going to select these edges, and I'll try to clone these. So that's kind of working. Let's select this edge here. I'm going to move it to the edge in the image. And you can see down here that the points on this edge are not lined up. So let's scale them. I'm going to switch to world mode here and then scale these down to 0. I'm going to move these edges or this edge over I'm also going to scale it. Then let's grab this edge, move it to here, and I'm going to move this point over a little bit. And we can get rid of this n-gon again. Let's delete this point, and I'm going to make a cut here. I'm going to make another cut here, and then I can cut from this point over to this edge, and then just move this point over a little bit. So this will give us quads everywhere here. And over here we could move these points. Well, let's just move this point over a little bit. Just trying to make these edges about the same length before I select this point and bevel it. And I'm going to use limit here, and I can bevel until I hit the points over here and over here. And let's add some subdivisions. I'm going to use 10. I'm going to deselect everything, optimize the object, and then we can select this polygon and remove the n-gons. And this will give us a triangle and a couple of quads. I'm going to triangulate these, and the reason for that is if I try to select a loop here, it will stop at the first quad. But if I triangulate these polygons and select a loop, you can see I can select all of the edges all around the object. So that's going to be helpful when we start adding bevels to these edges. And I think we need another cut down here using the loop cut tool again, and I'm making a cut here, and that's so I can define the edge for our frame here, and this grid is going to sit on top of this part of the object here. I'm going to select these polygons here. Also need these ones. I'm going to split these off. We can use these polygons maybe later on to create the basic shape for the grid. So I'm going to rename this to grid. And we can select these polygons here and just delete them and optimize the object. So that gives us the basic shape of the outer frame. So let's start adding more edges to define the areas where our details will be. I'm going to use the line cut tool to create two edges here. Maybe let's move this one up a little bit. And we can create an edge right at the center, and I'm going to add an additional one over here. And then we can continue this edge down to here, and this one as well. And let's select these two edges and move them over a little bit. And now we can continue these edges down all the way like this. Next, I'm going to define the areas where all of these little holes will be, and we're not going to worry about n-gons right now. So this first stage of modeling this object is all about defining areas where the details will be, and I don't want to create a whole lot of edges. We still have to figure out how we can put this part in there, and this area is going to create quite a few polygons. We're going to actually model this as a separate object and then try to fit it into the rest of the geometry. So for the time being, I don't really know how many edges I need to come from this area over to this area. So I'm just going to take care of this area now, and we're going to worry about the right part later on. I'm going to start by making some vertical cuts like this. And let's go ahead and line these edges up a little more accurately. With the reference image, we can move these ones over. And over here, we're going to need an additional edge here and here, right at the center of these holes, and maybe let's add one in between. And then we can start adding some horizontal cuts. Let's maybe add an edge loop in between here. And I'm going to make another cut over here. And we're going to need an edge loop right here at the center. I'm going to add one in between these holes here. Move it down a bit. And up here I'm just going to select these points, line them up with the center of these holes. And we're going to need another cut over here. So we've created all the areas that we need to be able to bool in these holes later on. And now what we could do is start fixing the geometry. Up here we have this n-gon. What we can do is connect these 2 points, make a cut like this, and then just move this point over a little bit. So this will give us quads here. And down here, let's get rid of this edge by dissolving it. And I'll move this one. Actually, I'm just going to move this point over a little bit. Maybe like so. Maybe let's move these 2 points down a little bit. Or maybe not. So like with the other corner, I'm trying to make these edges about the same length. Before I bevel this point, I'm going to use the same settings as before. So I'm going to use 10 subdivisions here. Bevel this. Let's optimize the object. And I'm going to connect these 2 points and these 2 points. And in order to get rid of all of these points in here, the easiest way is to select these n-gons and just melt them into a single n-gon, and this will automatically get rid of all of these points. Now I don't want all of these edges to go over to this point, so what I'll do is I'll select these edges down here, and connect them. And then we can make a cut from this point down to this one. And dissolve these edges. Let's go to point mode. And I think what I'll do here is I'll just make a straight cut over like this. I'm going to connect it to this point down here. Maybe we can continue this edge up to here and connect these 2 points, and we could bring this one straight down, same here, and we could connect these 2 points, and I think I'm just going to connect this point to the bottom here by making another cut like this. And we could connect these 2 points and then just select these polygons and remove the n-gons. These ones down here, I'm going to triangulate. Over here we have some more details, so we need to create some more geometry to be able to add those details. And in this area here, we actually need a little bit more geometry, otherwise there's going to be a hole in here. So what I'll do here is I'll just extrude these edges to about here, and then we can move these points over, and we don't really need these edges here, so let's get rid of them. And I'll move this edge over so it's behind that top part. So now we can add additional edges here. For this little detail. And we need some more edges over here and over here. Next, I'm going to prepare these details for extrusion, and we're going to add the holes. So let's start by selecting this polygon and using extrude inner, and let's adjust that a little bit. Going to scale this polygon and move it around a bit. Maybe something like this. Same here. Going to extrude inner and then adjust the polygon. Like so. And over here I think we can continue these edges like this. And then I'm going to extrude this polygon here. And adjust the size and the position. And I'm going to connect these 2 points. And then I'm going to make a cut from this edge straight over to here. I'm also going to make a cut like this. Actually, I think I'm just going to cut here, and we can move this point over. Let's make another cut down here, and then dissolve this edge, so we don't have to continue this edge all the way around the object here. So as you can see, I've just extruded this polygon, and again I'm just going to adjust the size a little bit and the position. Let's continue with this one. Next I'm going to extrude this one, and again adjust the size. And the position a little bit. So next I'm going to add these holes. I'm going to use a cylinder. I'm going to move it over and snap it to this point here. Let's scale this down. To maybe about this size. And I'll give it 12 segments. That should be enough, because if you consider the size of the entire floor panel, it's going to be a very small detail. So from this distance you can hardly see it. So I don't want to go too high poly with these holes here. Let's make a copy and snap it to this point. And we need more copies for the other holes here. And this one needs to be a little bit bigger. And we need one more copy for this hole over here. But we don't have the edges yet that we need. So let's go ahead and create some geometry here. Let's continue this edge. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this edge like I just did, and I'm going to connect these 2 points, which means that we can get rid of this edge by dissolving it. So we have 2 more edges here. Let's go ahead and select these edges, and I'm going to use edge cut with 2 subdivisions. Let's just dissolve these edges and then connect these 2 points and these 2 points. And I'm going to continue these edges here down to here. And we need to move these points over a little bit to create room for putting this hole in there. So let's make a copy of one of the smaller cylinders, and I'm going to snap it to this point here. So now we can put all of these cylinders into a null object and use a bool object, put the null in there. And the bool object will remove all of the n-gons, which is not what I want because it's going to create quite a bit of a mess. So I'm going to create a single object and just hide the new edges. I think I'm going to keep a copy of this just in case. And let's make this editable. And I'm going to use close polygon hole to close all of these holes. Let's select all of the n-gons here. I'm going to use extrude inner, and then let's just go to point mode. And I'm going to select all of these points and just weld them. And then we can remove the n-gons by connecting these points here. I'm going to continue doing this for the other holes here. And again, I'm removing the n-gons. I'm using connect points edges to do this, and it's really useful to have it mapped to a shortcut because that enables you to do that pretty quickly. So one more to go. Let's go ahead and weld these points. And then just connect these points to get rid of the n-gons. So now we've prepared the geometry for most of the details we have on this frame, except for this area, which we're going to model separately. And I think we can start turning this into a three-dimensional object now. Now, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the edges on the outside. And I'm going to extrude them. And let's select all of these points here. I'm going to weld them. Then I'm going to use snapping and axis center to line these points up, like so. And then we can select all of these points up here. Let's switch on our original plane. And I'm going to snap these points to the edges of that original plane. So this will make sure that we get the final dimensions for the object, which is 4 meters by 3.2 meters. And now I can ring select these polygons, and I'm going to extrude these with caps down to here. Switching the tool, going back to extrude, switch off create caps, and I'm going to extrude these down to here. So I'm lining these up with this detail here. And then I'm just going to extrude these down a little bit further. I'm not going to make it as high as the reference image. I think I'm just going to go to about here. I have to go back a few steps because I did that wrong. So again, I'm going to extrude these polygons on the outside here using caps. Let's do this once again. I'm just going to delete all of the polygons and optimize the object. And I did it wrong again. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to extrude these without caps. So we're getting this edge, and let's go to the top view. I'm going to select the polygon here, delete it. I'm going to delete this one, and now we can ring select these polygons here, delete them, and optimize the object. So let's go back to edge mode. I have all of the edges on the outside still selected, and now we can extrude these down to about here, and then let's extrude them down one more time to maybe about here. So that looks about right. I'm going to select all of the edges and I'm going to scale them. So hit T for scale, and I have my modeling axis changed here, bringing the y-axis all the way to the top so I can scale from the top of the object. And I'm going to make this 8 centimeters. Let's go back, switch off world mode, do this again. So that's a lot better. And I'm going to change that back to 0. We also need to extrude down the edge or the area here on the inside. So I'm going to select these polygons here. Not these ones. And I'm going to extrude these down without caps, minus, let's try 2 and see how it looks. Oh, I forgot to select these ones here. So I think that's looking okay. Let's select this polygon here and delete it. Delete this one. Now we can ring select these, delete them, and optimize the object. And we can also select the edges here on the outside, or on the inside rather. going to extrude these down a little bit and then just snap them to the bottom edges. So you can see the outer frame is beginning to take shape slowly. So next I'm going to extrude some of the polygons here. Let's start with the rectangular shapes. I'm going to select all of these. And extrude them down a little bit. Let's do 1 centimeter. Let's see how that looks. And I'm going to continue with the holes. And I'm also going to extrude these down about 1 centimeter. And I'm going to use extrude inner. Let's use a very small offset. I'll do maybe 0.2. And I'm going to extrude these up a bit. Extrude inner again. Like so. And maybe we should have extruded these up a little bit further to maybe about here. So I'm going to use extrude inner again and then extrude these down just a little bit. Maybe something like this. And I'm going to loop select all of these edges here. And I'm going to chamfer them just a little bit, no subdivisions. And I'm just going to do a very small offset here. And you can see we're having some issues. Let's try and fix that issue here by maybe moving these points over a little bit. And that didn't really help. So I'm going back to edge mode. And I'm going to select all of these edges. Do we have the same problem here? No, we don't actually. So I'm just going to select these edges here, and I'm going to break the Phong shading, and that should get rid of that problem. So let's have a look at this hole here. Yeah, actually looks okay, so I'm going to leave it as it is. I think that's beginning to look pretty nice. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add these extrusions or holes. And I think I'll start with this one over here. So let's select these polygons and delete them. I'm going to select this edge and extrude it down. I'm going to snap it to this edge down here. And we can use the polygon pen to create a polygon here. We'll need an additional edge here, so I'm going to select these and connect them. And in the top view, I'm going to use the line cut tool, make sure that visible only is switched off, and I'm going to cut like this. And now we can use the polygon pen and close these holes here. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to select these edges here and delete them, and then we can select these edges, deselect these ones, extrude them down, and just snap them down to here. And use the polygon pen to close these holes here. And I'm going to make a cut from this point straight across. So now we can close this hole over here. And over here, let's see, what can we do? I'm going to close this hole like this. And I'm going to make a cut like this, and now we can move this point over. Maybe scale these down. Deselect everything, optimize the object. So just checking this area to make sure we've connected the polygons properly, and it seems we did. So now we can continue with this area here. I'm just going to select these points here and delete them. And I'm also going to dissolve this edge for now, then extrude this one down. Oh, I deleted too many polygons. Doesn't matter, let's just use the polygon pen and close this hole here. Now this edge I'm going to snap it down to this one. And we can create a polygon here. And if you take a look at the reference image, it's a bit difficult to see, but we have this slanted surface here. So I'm just going to move this edge over a little bit, maybe to about here. If you want to be more accurate, you can use axis center to snap it to this point, but actually I think we need to move it over a little bit further to about here. And let's make some cuts to create the geometry that we need to be able to connect everything together. I think we can get rid of this edge here. And we need an additional edge here. Just going to scale these edges down to 0. Maybe move them up a little bit. I'm just going to repeat the process for the other side here. And of course we need to continue this edge here. So I'm just going to make a cut from this point all the way across. Now I'm going to select this area here. And you can see we still have 7 n-gons. So let's go and find them and clean this up. I'm going to deselect everything and use a free plugin called Special Selections that allows me to select all of the n-gons. Now we can ignore all of these for now, but I do want to take care of these ones over here. Let's deselect everything and optimize, and you can see we only have 11 n-gons left. You can see we have 2 points here. I'm just going to weld them. And over here, something seems to have gone wrong. So I've just deleted this polygon here. going to snap or weld these 2 points here, and then just close this hole. And you can see we've removed all of the n-gons now from this area. I also want to add a bevel to some of the edges. So I'm going to select these ones here. And these ones. And these ones. And let's add a chamfer to these. Just a small one. Let's do maybe 0.2 or something. And this again will create some n-gons. So let's get rid of those. By making a cut here like this. And over here I'm going to select these edges and connect them, and then we can just connect these points over here and these ones over here. And over here we're just going to make another cut from this point to this point. And let's connect these 2 points and these 2 over here. And we still have an n-gon over here, and I think I'm just going to get rid of that by making a cut all the way across to the center of the object. And now the outer frame is almost finished. The only thing that's left to do is this area here, and that's the one we're going to tackle next.